Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeri Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namah. Chaitanyam Sarvagam Sarvam Sarvabhuta Guhashayam Yat Sarva Vishayatitam Tasmai Sarvavide Namaha. Now starting the 9th chapter, Sukshmata Vyapita Prakaranam. So this prakaranam, this chapter, section, which explains to us Sukshmata and Vyapita. Sukshmata, subtlety. Vyapita, pervasiveness. Although the meaning they are different, they pertain to the same thing. What is subtle has to be Vyapi or pervasive also, as will be explained. The Tikakara says, Yasya Pratyak Brahmana Vakyotha Jnanena Ajnana Vritya Mukti Ukta. Mukti Ukta. Mukti, the liberation, freedom was stated, described. How? Ajnana Nivritya, by despairing of the ignorance. With what? Jnanena, by knowledge. What kind of knowledge? Vakyotha Jnana Uttha. Vakyotha, the knowledge that has arisen from Vakya, meaning Mahavakya. Tattvamasi Aham Brahmasmi. So earlier chapters explain how to deliberate upon that Vakya Vichara, how to perform, so that that Vichara leads to the knowledge of what is the true meaning or Tatparya of that Vakya. Therefore, the knowledge takes place from Mahavakya, from Upadesha of Mahavakya on the part of the teacher, and Vichara or deliberation upon the meaning of the Mahavakya, Tatparya of Mahavakya. So that is how, that's the process of Mahavakya leads to the knowledge. So, Jnanena, knowledge of what? Pratyak Brahmana Jnanena, by the knowledge of Pratyak Brahma. Not only Brahma, but Pratyak Brahma. Pratyak means self, innermost self, and Brahma means the limitless. So, recognizing the identity of the Pratyagatma with Brahma, recognizing me to be Brahman or limitless, or that Brahma, Yasya Pratyak Brahmana, that Pratyek Brahma, or that Brahma which is Pratyak, and Brahma means limitless, by knowledge of which the mukti, the liberation takes place. Yasya tasya. Tasya means what? Tasya Pratyek Brahmana, of that Pratyek Brahma. Sarvantaratva, so that Pratyek Brahma is the Vishaya, the subject matter of this chapter. What is that Pratyek Brahma which is my self? The knowledge of which leads to mukti or liberation. Therefore, Pratyek Brahma is most important because its knowledge leads to moksha. Therefore, further understanding or deliberation of Pratyek Brahma. Tasya sarvantaratvena. So, ya atma, that atma which is sarvantara, that which is innermost self of all. So, Pratyek also means innermost. So, not only Brahman is the innermost self of mind, but it is the Pratyeka, the innermost self of all. It is the innermost self. How is it sarvantaratvena? Because it is sarvantaram, it is the innermost of all. Nrit is a sukshmatvam. What can be innermost or inner? That which is subtler is inner. Indriyebhyah parahyarthaha arthebhyasya param manah manasastu parabuddhi. So Kathopanishad also described a sequence of the innerness, the pervasiveness. So that alone can be inner, which is subtler, more pervasive, the very self of the previous one. And so, Sarvantara, that which is the innermost, must be the Nirdisya Sukshma. The inner is necessarily subtler than of what it is inner. And that innermost must be the subtlest. Therefore, Nirdisya Sukshmatvam. Sukshmatvam, the subtleness or subtlety. Niradisha means unsurpassable. It must be the most subtle. Which is most inner must be the most subtle. Vyapitvam, that alone can be subtle, which is subtler, which is more pervasive. So subtlety and pervasiveness go together, and selfness, innerness, subtlety, pervasiveness, all of these go together. So this chapter is meant for revealing the fact that Brahman is innermost self by showing how it is the subtlest and more pervasive, most pervasive. Therefore, it is innermost. Because knowing Brahman as it is a means of liberation. Then we must know what the nature of Brahman is so that we know it accordingly. This was indicated in the previous verse, yatha kham, yatha cha kham. Just as a space. Where Atma was compared with the space. It was said that Brahman, of course, is a samsari because it transcends everything. But Atma is all pervasive. How can all pervasive also be pure? But all pervasive pervades everything, therefore is in contact with everything, and therefore is likely to inherit or contact everything. Therefore, how can that which is pervasive be also pure? When you pass through a coal mine, you are going to get, the stain. Similarly, if Atma pervades everything, is going to be influenced by what it pervades. In that case, how can it be pure? So, Brahman can be pure because there is no contact with anything. How can Atma be pure? So, that was the thing. And for showing the example of space was given. How space is all pervasive. It informs everything. It as though contacts everything, and still it is ever pure, unaffected or unpolluted by anything. So the example of space is well-known example, understand. Yatha chakam. So just space is all pervasive and still untainted. So similarly also Brahman is all pervasive and untainted. Idyatra suchitam upapadaitam. And so space stands for, it's all pervasive, meaning it is subtlest and all pervasive. So that was the example for Brahman also, which is the subtlest and all pervasive. Upadaitam, so this was stated. By the example of space, this nature of Brahman was stated. Upadaitam. Now, to arrive at that by reasoning, upapatti. So, alright, the Shruti says Brahman is all pervasive. It is subtlest. How? The buddhi, the intellect wants to know. So, intellect wants reasoning. So, this chapter is meant for providing the upapatti, the reasoning, to establish how Brahman is all pervasive, is subtlest like the space. Prakaranantaram arabhate. The next prakarana is begun for this, commence for this purpose. Sukshmata ityadina. So prakarana begins with the verse Sukshmata. So let us read the first verse. Sukshmata vyapite gneye gandhaderuttarottaram pratyagatmavasaneshu purva purva prahanatah. Sukshmata vyapite gneye. Dvivachan. That Sukshmata and Vyapita should be known. How? Pratyagatma avasaneshu. Culminating in Pratyagatma, we should know or understand the Sukshmata, the subtleness, and Vyapita, the pervasiveness. So that Sukshmata and Vyapita culminate into Pratyagatma. If you pursue this reasoning or sequence of examining subtleness, the subtleness will culminate into Pratyagatma. Similarly, if you examine pervasiveness, that also will culminate Pratyagatma. So our purpose is to know Pratyagatma, Brahman as Pratyagatma. Therefore, we are interested in examining Sukshmata and Vyapita, not otherwise. Because examination of Sukshmata, subtlety, and Vyapita, pervasiveness, also is examination of Atma. Is also examination of Brahman. Now we understand what Sukshmata is, what Vyapita is, that we understand. That will lead us to the understanding of Brahman. Because Pratyagatma vasaneshu, the Sukshmata, the subtlety culminates into, meaning that the subtlest is Pratyagatma, Vyapita, the most pervasive also is Pratyagatma. Therefore, how do you do that? Gandha dehe, beginning from Gandha, Adi. Gandha means smell. Here it is earth. So beginning from earth, which is then most gross and least pervasive and most evident to us. What we know or experience, or what is the matter of experience, everybody is earth, because it is the grossest And that everybody knows what earth is. So Gandhadehe, beginning from earth, which we know. From there we know what is pervasiveness, what is subtlety. Uttarottaram, subsequently. So in subsequent sequence, beginning from earth and going into a sequence, a series of what? Sukshmata, Vyapita. What is subtler than earth? What is more pervasive in earth? Like that if you examine. How do you get that? Purva prahanataha. To recognize what is subtler than earth, then earth must be prahanataha. Earth must be given up, negated, resolved, to arrive at what is subtler than that. What is more pervasive than that? Why is it so? Because the relationship is that between Karya and Karana. We need to explain how. Karanam meaning the Upadana Karana, material cause, is always subtler than Karya, the effect, and therefore more pervasive than the effect. Therefore, if you begin with earth, which is Karya, product, the grossest product, and then examine it in terms of what is the Karanam of earth. This Karanam is more pervasive and subtler. Thus, if you pursue the inquiry, where will it culminate? Into Pratyagatma. So, we are interested in Pratyagatma. This is a very interesting way of analyzing and arriving at Pratyagatma. For this, as we said, the pramanam is Kathopanishad. Indriyebhya parahyarthaha arthe. So, Indriyas are the grosses there leading up to Purusha or Paramatma. So, going to the Tika, he explains Gandhadehe, beginning from Gandha. Gandha Shabda hai, Prithvi Shabdartha hai. But Gandha stands for Prithvi. Shabdartha, the meaning of the word Gandha is the same as the meaning of the word Prithvi. Means Gandha means Prithvi. So Uttarottaram means what? Subsequently. Prithvi Ambu Adilakshanat Karyat. Karya, the effect. So compare the effect such as Prithvi, earth, Ambu, water. Purvasmat, Uttaram. Uttaram is following, subsequent as compared to earlier one. Purvasmat, with reference to each preceding one. Uttaram, the following one. Karanataya Siddeshu. That obtains as Karanam, the material cause. Meaning that material cause is Uttaram, is following the Karya, the effect. From the effect of the cause, the subtlety and pervasiveness. Pratyagatma avasaneshu. When this is pursued, it culminates into Pratyagatma, the innermost self. Because Karanam is also self of Karya. If clay is the Karanam, material cause of a pot, then clay also Atma of the pot. And therefore, not only subtleness or pervasiveness, but selfness, understand. So merely subtle and pervasive, then that may not be sufficient. But also Karanam, the material cause also is the self of Karyam, self of effect. If water is the material cause of earth, then water is subtler than earth, more pervasive in earth, and self of the earth. So that is the reason why the inquiry of subtleness and pervasiveness culminates into self, because the Karanam, material cause also, is the self of the Karya. Pratyagatma avasaneshu, culminating to Pratyagatma. What is Pratyagatma avasaneshu? That comes from this text. Sarvantaratma paryanteshu, that word is explained. Pratyagatma is Sarvantaratma. Pratyak means antara. Sarvantara, the innermost self of all. Avasaneshu, paryanteshu, up to, leading, culminating into Pratyagatma. Sarvantaratma, which is innermost self. Padartheshu, entities. So entities culminating to Pratyagatma, which is Sarvantaratma. Yatha kramam, we must follow a sequence. What sequence? Of Karya and Upadana Karanam. Karya and next following is Upadana Karanam. That sequence we should follow. Yatha kramam purva prahanatah. By rejecting or letting go the previous one. From the Karya of the effect, you can arrive at the material cause by giving the effect. From the pot, you can arrive at the clay by giving up the pot. Meaning that in your mind, the potness must be given up. That's what is by giving up. Giving is not a physical action or anything. But when the pot is in my hand, right now, the perception is this is a pot. What is meant by giving up the pot? Is when I focus upon what is the material of this? It's clay. Then in my mind, where is clay buddhi, then pot buddhi goes away. So when my mind becomes preoccupied with the material cause, such as clay, is preoccupied with the effect, such as pot goes away. This is how you give up. So, pura prahanatha. Prahana means this is how you give up. Effect is given up by replacing it with cause, because cause is already there. So you cannot give up pot by replacing it with a cloth or something, Yes, I have given up cloth, Swamiji. Now what do I know? I know this is a cloth. Then there is some problem there. The pot is given up when you know this entity as clay. That is called prahanata. So thus giving up presupposes shifting the attention from the effect to the material cause. Pura prahanata explains. Karyakar apohena. Prahanam, apoham, giving up. What is it? Karya akara prahanaya. Apohena prahanaya. When the karya akara is given up, this object is pot, it is karya. What is the akara? Potness is the form of this object. Apohena, that potness is given up. The akara, the form of pot is given up. Or partness of the object is given up. Then, if we reduce it, Swami, what is left? If pot is given up, what is left? Pot is available for being given up. Thank God. Because tat ananyatvam, pot is ananya, non-separate from clay. Vyatirekena abhavaha, the pot cannot exist without the clay. That being the case, even when you give up the pot, the clay remains as a residue. Otherwise, the pot is an independent entity, you give it up, then nothing remains. No. Pot or karya is not independent. It is totally dependent upon karanam, the material cause. That is why by giving up the effect, you arrive at the material cause. So, karyakar apohena sukshmata vyapita cha jnaya jneye vijñatavya vijñatavya. So this is how you know Sukshmata, what is called subtlety, Vyapita, pervasiveness, is how we understand by giving up the form of the effect and seeing that very object as a cause. You don't produce a cause. It's already there. You see the pot, the clay is there, we may not see it, is a different thing. It's very much there, then alone something will remain. If the clay is not there, nothing will remain by giving up the pot. This karya karana anvaya vyatireka alochanaya sambhavaniya ityartha. Vijnaya means what? Seen. Now seen is not like seeing the pot. Pot is seen with your eyes. The clay you may not see with your eyes. It is seen with the mind's eye, you follow? Because clay also has a cause which you don't see. If you see, then the question doesn't come. You do not see means you do not see with your eyes, you still see with your mind's eye. This is how the seeing is. So, sambhavaniya, you see the potential of the karanam by giving up, letting go, negating, falsifying, mithyatvam, recognizing mithyatvam of the karya in the Vedantic words and recognizing satyatvam of the karanam. How? Anvaya vyatireka alochanaya. Anvaya, coexistence. When effect is there, the cause is always there. The cause, such as clay, is always present in effect, such as a pot, anvaya. But the effect is not there in cause, such as the pot is not there in clay, vyatireka. This anvaya vyatireka animates us to establish a cause and effect relationship. Just to understand the cause and effect relationship, the method is anvaya vyatireka. Anywhere. Anywhere, if you want to examine cause and effect, who did this? I don't know. Anvaya vyatireka. When this thing was there, then who was there? Anvaya. Now vyatireka, that fellow is not there. But when this was there, now this is broken. But when it was not broken, who was there? Whoever was there is anvaya. This fellow was there. Then it fell from his hand and it broke down. So then it disappears. So now the cause is not there when the effect is there. When you want to analyze what the cause is, you inquire. Who was there when this was whole? That's how you know the cause and effect, that this entity is responsible for breaking this. This is what we apply all the time, by the way. This method of anvaya vyatireka, we always apply, all the time apply to determine the cause and effect. Because that's how life is. When we experience the effect, then we want to know what's the cause always. Because we understand effect only when you understand the cause. Our mind is always inquiring, what's the cause? Who did it? What's happened? What's the cause? What's the reason? You will never understand. So reason can be understood by the method of anvaya vyatireka, which always applies. So here also. Karya karana anvaya vyatirekena. Karanasya karye anvaya. Karyasya karana vyatireka. Alochanaya sambhavaniya. So there the karanam you don't see. You arrive at it. You follow? You don't see this fellow breaking it. You arrive at it. And you can imagine, this is what must have happened. He must be trying to do something and it slipped from his hand, whatever. And the pot containing the honey. So this you don't see, but sambhavaniya, you can visualize how it must have happened. Anyway, that's how we come to the karya karana sambandha. In our life, the same thing here. So, how do you see? This seeing is of different nature, understand? Seeing karya is of one kind, seeing karana is of a different kind. Then he explains. Karyeshu vidyamapi karana swarupam. थोड़ो आवाज मोटो कर तत्कार्याकार तिरोहिततया न स्वरूपेण अवभासते कार्येषु विद्यमापि कारण स्वरूपम. The karanam, the material cause must necessarily be present in the karya. Because without the self or the cause, the effect cannot survive. Because cause imparts satta and sphurti to the effect. The clay imparts satta and sphurti to the pot. Therefore, in the pot, the clay must be there because clay provides satta. The clay must be evident also because that is why the pot is evident. Therefore, theoretically, the karanam must be there in the karya. Vidyamanapi karana swarupam. So, karana swarupam, the fact, cause is vidyamanam, very much existing there. Tat karya karya tirohitataya. But that karana has taken karya akara. The clay has taken the akara form of the pot, and therefore that pot conceals the manifestation of clay. Karya akara tirohitataya. What is it that prevents you from seeing the clay which is very much there? It is the form of the pot, because the pot registers in your mind. The pot thought registers in your mind. And therefore the clay thought is hidden or concealed. You cannot perceive the pot without the clay. There cannot be pot thought without the clay thought, really. Still, we only make note of the pot and not of the clay because that pot buddhi is tirohita, is concealed by the clay buddhi is concealed by the pot buddhi. Therefore, na swarupena avabhasate. If you understand this process well, then the analysis becomes very simple. Na swarupena avabhasate. Karanam na swarupena avabhasate. Avabhasate. The cause very much shines there. Swarupan as cause it does not shine to us. We do not in fact make note of that as a cause. It's there, it's shining also. If cause did not shine, the effect cannot shine. So, na swarupena avabhasate. It is sukshmam uchyate. It is said that the karanam, the material cause is sukshmam, subtler than the effect. That the clay is subtler than the pot. How? Subtle means sukshma. Sukshma means small, usually. So sukshma means small, meaning that in size or what? Is clay smaller than the pot in size, therefore clay is called sukshma or subtle? No. So says, na swarupana avabhasa, it is sukshma uchyate. Sukshma means that which cannot be perceived. Sukshma also means small in size. But when the thing becomes small in size, it becomes more difficult to perceive. Ultimately, an atom becomes so subtle that you can't perceive that. You follow? So, sukshma means subtler in size, at the same time, more difficult to perceive. In that sense, the cause of the clay is called sukshma or subtle because it cannot be perceived even when it is there. An atom, even when it is there, you cannot perceive that, therefore you call it subtle, small, atomic. So clay is very much there, still not perceived in our mind. In that sense, it is called sukshma or subtle, not perceptible. So word sukshma is not in terms of size. That clay is smaller in size as compared to pot, that way it is called subtle. It is more difficult to perceive than pot, therefore it is called subtler than pot. So we should know in what sense the word sukshma is used. It is sukshma uchyate. Tirohitataya. It is very much there, but it is concealed because of the form of the effect, and therefore, in spite of being there, cannot be perceived. And since it cannot be perceived, it is called sukshma, subtle. Because subtle also is more difficult to perceive. न पुनः कार्य परिमाणात न्यून परिमाण योगात. Parimana means measure, size. It is not that clay is subtler in size than pot, that it is called subtle. But clay is more difficult to perceive than pot. In that sense, it is called subtler. So we must understand the meaning of the word sukshmata here. So this is illustrated with reference to kara and karya, such as clay and pot. Now that rule can be then applied everywhere. Tatha sakala swavikara anugatasyeva upadana karanatvad. Upadana karan, what is the material cause? Swavikara anugatam. That is called material cause, anugatam, which is very much present to pervade the swavikara, its own effect. So clay is called the material cause of pot because the clay, anugatam, pervades the pot. Swavikara, not anywhere else. Clay does not pervade my shirt or something like that. It is not the material cause pervades anything, everything. Material cause pervades its own effect, that's all. So cotton is the material cloth, the cause, the way it pervades my shirt. And clay is the material cause, the way it pervades the pot. So, swavikar anugatasya. That's the upadana, material cause, which is anugatam, which pervades the swavikara, its own effect, its own vikara. Upadana, this is the definition of upadana karanam, by the way. Upadana karanam, swavikara anugatam, that which pervades its own effect. Therefore, karya apeksha adhika desha vrittitvena vyapitvam. In what sense is the clay called more pervasive than pot? So what is pervasive? That which obtains in greater location is more pervasive. Table is more pervasive than the clock. Because clock obtains in a given space and time, a given space, and the table obtains in much wider space, therefore we call table more pervasive. So, adhika desha vrittitvena. So that which adhika desha, that which obtains in greater place, greater space, is called pervasive, more pervasive. So, to understand the pervasiveness of the cause, it is not like the cloth and the clock and the table. This is an example. But the rule is that which obtains in more places, more entities. So clay is more pervasive than pot because pot exists only in one place and time, while clay exists in many pots and pans and many things. Therefore, adhika desha vrittitvam obtaining. Adhika desha obtaining in more space, more places. So clay obtains in many more places than pot. In that sense, clay is called more pervasive than pot. So we must understand what pervasiveness is. So karanasya vyapitvam. Thus material cause is more pervasive in effect, in the sense that it obtains in many more entities or many more places than the effect exists. Thus we understand the meaning of the words sukshmata and vyapita. That we must understand. So we have our own, in our day-to-day language, we use this word in certain sense. The sukshmata means something smaller in size. Vyapita means something that is bigger in size. Now those meanings may not always apply here. So what is the meaning that applies here is what the Tikakara first explains. So now we understand sukshmata and vyapita. Now this understanding can be applied everywhere. Tatha to illustrate. Chaturvida bhutagram upadan rupa prithvi. Start with prithvi, gandha. Gandha dehe uttarottaram. Beginning from gandha. Gandha shabda, prithvi shabdartha. The meaning of the word gandha is same as the meaning of the word prithvi, meaning gandha stands for earth. Upadan rupa prithvi. Earth is the material cause of what? Chaturvida bhuta grama. Of the fourfold beings, bhuta. The group of fourfold beings. What are the fourfold beings? Jarayujam, Udbhijam, Svedajam, Andajam, right. So all the beings in short that we know are classified in these four categories. Therefore, and all the bodies, every being possesses a body, a gross body. Otherwise, living being cannot be unless it possesses a sentient gross body. So all these beings, beginning from even this Svedajam, whatever little thing may be there, to the human beings or to elephants and whatever things are there, one characteristic of all the beings is that they possess a gross body. And this gross body is made of earth, because it's our experience therefore. So we start with what we know. Tatha to illustrate Chaturvida Bhutagrama Upadana Rupa Prithvi. An accepted fact. So we start with an accepted fact. Who says that? Then the discussion cannot proceed further. Who told you that? I don't accept it. If someone says, no, I don't accept that the body is made of Prithvi, then we have to establish how it is made of Prithvi. So an assumption cannot proceed unless it is accepted equally by others. It's taken for granted that everybody accepts that the bodies are all made of Prithvi. So Gandha means Prithvi. What is Prithvi? Prithvi means the Upadana Karanam, the material cause of all the beings. All the fourfold beings, the material cause of all fourfold beings of Prithvi. So you must know what Prithvi is. Okay, so begin from there. Tavata. Now we want what? Sukshmata, Vyapite, Gneye, Gandhade. Now we want to pursue our inquiry of Sukshmata, subtlety, and Vyapita, pervasiveness, Gandhade, beginning with Prithvi. So what is Prithvi? See, Chaturvida Grama Chaturvida Grama Upadana Bhuta Prithvi. Prithvi is the Upadanam, the material cause of the fourfold beings. So what is Prithvi? Is this. Now let us examine the Sukshmata and Vyapita. Tavata na bhuta grameshu grihyamaneshu grihyate. Explained earlier that material cause is not perceived even when we perceive the effect. even though it is very much present. Even though the gold is very much present in the ornament, when we look at the ornament, all that we grasp is the ornament at that time. Even though the material cause where gold is present, it is not noticed, it is not seen. So whatever is like that is the upadana karana, which is subtler and more pervasive. So how do you say that Prithvi is upadana karana? Of the fourfold beings, begin with Prithvi is upadana karanam. What is upadana karanam? Which is present but not noticed. So says, Tavat na bhuta grameshu krushyamaneshu grushyate. You have to prove that Prithvi is upadana karanam. That when you perceive this fourfold bodies, that time you don't notice the Prithvi. The upadana karanam, in spite of being there, because our mind is preoccupied with the effect, therefore the mind does not make note of the cause. So similarly also when you see all the human beings and birds and trees and all kinds of entities, we see that as a peacock, see that as a neem tree, see that as a human being, that's what we notice. At that time in our mind, the pratyaya, the cognition of Prithvi doesn't take place. Even though Prithvi is very much there, because without the Prithvi, this peacock and man, nothing could be there. And still when we perceive them, we do not perceive Prithvi. That is the definition of upadana karana, which is very much there, but at the same time not seen. So, Tavat na bhuta grameshu grushyamaneshu prithvi grushyate. So when we thus perceive these fourfold beings, we don't perceive, meaning we do not make note of Prithvi, which is very much present there. So that is how the upadana karana was explained earlier. So now Prithvi satisfies that criterion. Therefore, Prithvi is the upadana karana of the fourfold beings. Why do you say nagruhyate? Tatra tashabda pratyaya vyavahara adarsanad lokasya. Whenever people interact or transact with ornaments, nobody uses the word gold. They always say bangle and earring. Nobody uses the word gold. Why? Because they don't perceive that. So also when we talk about peacock and the tree and stuff like that, nobody talks about Prithvi. Because it does not register in our mind. Therefore, tatra tashabda pratyaya vyavahara adarsanat. Shabda and pratyaya, when the shabda peacock and pratyaya, the cognition of the peacock takes place at that time, the word Prithvi and the cognition of Prithvi is not there. Adarsanat. In the day-to-day life, we do not find people using the word Prithvi when they use the word peacock. Hey, bring Prithvi. We don't say that. Bring peacock. Bring that plant. We don't say Prithvi. Bring that pot. We don't say Prithvi. Many people do not use Shabda and Pratyaya. The Shabda used is peacock. And Pratyaya is corresponding cognition. We do not find people using the word Prithvi for peacock. Even though we know that Prithvi is very much there because it is the material cause. So that is the characteristic of material cause, but which is there but not seen. Had it been seen, then people would have used that word and pratyaya. While talking about the chain, etc., if I had seen the gold, I would have called it gold. I don't use the word gold, nor is there a cognition of gold. What I use is chain. So we use a chain and earring, etc. that shows that the gold is hidden. So Prithvi is hidden even though it is very much there. So therefore we say Prithvi is the upadana karanam of Chaturvida Bhutagrama, material cause of the fourfold living beings. Atah tadapekshaya sukshma. So thus Prithvi is the material cause of present but not noticed. So that is called sukshma, which cannot be perceived or cannot be noticed. So when we perceive the peacock, we do not perceive the Prithvi, even though it is there. Therefore, Prithvi by the definition is sukshma, is subtler than peacock. Tad avyapta desha vartitvad vyapika. Peacock exists where the peacock is. Prithvi exists where the tree is also, where the plant also is there, where other bird is there, where dog is there, cat is there. So peacock is confined to one place and time. Where Prithvi obtains everywhere many more entities than peacock. In that sense, Prithvi is more pervasive. So Prithvi is subtler than peacock, the effect, because even though it is there, it is not noticed. It is more pervasive in the effect, the peacock, because it obtains in many more entities than peacock. So, sukshmata vyapita of the Prithvi, of Gandha, is now we have to understand this way. So this is how inquiry begins. Gandha dehe uttarottaram sukshmata vyapite jneye. Beginning from Gandha or Prithvi, jneye we should understand sukshmata and vyapita pura prahanata, by giving up the earlier one. So by giving up this peacock fellow, now in our mind we see it as Prithvi. Not with the eyes. What you see with the eyes is gross, and what you see in the mind is subtler. So therefore, when our mind gives a peacockness, then it appreciates the Prithvi-ness. So that is how we arrive at from effect to the cause, that which is sukshma and vyapi. Then he says, well, okay, that peacock is made of earth, tree also is made of earth, human being also is made of earth. It's not the same earth. Earth which you picked up to make this body is different earth that you picked up for that peacock, is a different earth from, that we use for a tree. Is it not so? So, nacha tat karya upadana bhutaha prasivamsha bhinnaha iti. Somebody can argue that yes, you are right. The Prithvi is the same, which makes up the material for peacock and stuff like that, all the fourfold entities. But the different Prithvi. Prithvi that you use for making the body of peacock is different from Prithvi that you use for making a tree, is different from Prithvi that you use for making this human body. So Prithvi is the same, but Prithvi amshaha, that part of the Prithvi is all different. So how do you say it's the same? So, nacha tat karya upadana bhutaha prasviyamshaha bhinnaha iti. You can argue this argument. That even though Prithvi is there, but the Prithvi amsha, that part of the Prithvi from which peacock is made, is different from the part of Prithvi from which tree is made. So how do you say the same Prithvi? Iti na upadanasya vyapakata. So that part of which peacock is made is cause of peacock. But the part from which tree is made is cause of that tree. Therefore you cannot apply that Prithvi is more vyapak, That amsha which is cause is more pervasive. In fact, how to apply, make it a general rule that Prithvi is more pervasive? Upadanasya vyapakata iti vacham. So this rule that upadana karanam, material cause, is more pervasive in fact, is not established because each effect is made from a different part of the material cause, and therefore you cannot say material cause is more pervasive than effect because it's all different. It is navacham. This you cannot say. Karyakara bheda vyatirekena mrutsvaru bheda pramana nirupanat. There is some bheda, all right. There is a bheda also. What is the bheda? Between peacock and tree and the human body, there is bheda, no doubt about that. Karya bheda vyatirekena. Bheda or difference is there in where karya akara. What is karya akara? Peacock is the effect. Tree is the effect. So peacock is its own akara. Tree is its own akara. Human body is its own akara. They are all different from each other when it comes to the akara, the form of the effect. Yes. Karya akara vyatirekena. So difference is there only in the akara of the form. Mrut vyate, mrut swarupe, pramana anirupanat. You cannot say that the clay is different. Between peacock and tree, the karya akara, the effect is different. The form is different of the effect. But you cannot say that the clay is different. Clay is taken one form for pot, another form for a pitcher, a third form for something else. So that where is the difference is the form that the clay is taken that does not establish the difference in clay. So also Prithvi has taken one akara for becoming peacock, different akara for becoming tree. So what is the difference in peacock and tree? Is akara or form of material cause, form of Prithvi, not Prithvi. And therefore, karya akara bheda vyatirekena pramana anirupanat. There is no pramanam, no evidence to establish. You see the difference is all right. Peacock is different from tree. That difference, what does it establish? Does it establish the difference in the Prithvi of which these fellows are made? He says no. What is different is the akara that Prithvi has taken. That is different. That difference does not establish the difference in the Prithvi or the upadana karana. Meaning that the difference that exists in akara is superimposed upon Prithvi and thinks that the Prithvi is different. What is different is the akara. Gold is not different. Gold is taken in one form with bangle, in another form in earring. The form that gold is taken is different, not that gold is different. Otherwise what happens? Anyatha, tataka, antastha, mrud kusulasya. Kusula means a koti, means a granary, a huge storage for grain. It's called kusula. Now when you make that huge thing, where do you go? Tataka antah, antastha mrut. You want clay. Where do you go? You go to a pond. A tataka means a pond, or talao, pond. Because you need a lot of clay. For making a kusula or a koti, you go to a pond, and you make that kusula from the clay of the pond. You follow? Because you need a lot of clay. If you want to make a pot like this, you can just take clay from your own, front yard. Therefore, the clay, are they different? Is the clay obtaining in the pond or tataka different from the clay obtaining in your front yard? For making a small pot, you use this clay. For making a big kusula, you use that clay. Does it make, where is the difference? Difference of form the clay is taken in kusula or ghata, clay is not different. If clay were different, then if that, suppose in your home you have this big granary, big koti, it breaks down. in course of time. Then what do? You pick up all those things and throw them where? In your yard. That's what we do in India. And then that's quite all right. In course of time, that clay mixes with the clay in your soil and then becomes one. Is it not so? If the clay from which the koti was made, or kusula was made, was different clay, then it will not merge into clay which is in your ground. You follow? It will remain separate. But no, it merges. That shows that basically clay of the tataka is not different from clay in your own home. Gruhangana angana in the front yard. Gruhangana deshe, the clay obtaining in your front yard, there that clay from the kusula would not mix or merge if they were two different clays. Two different things cannot merge into one, but they merge. So this is an experience. That koti always breaks now and then, you throw it away. In course of time becomes one, with the soil in your front yard. Gruhangana deshe Viditatmana vile abhav prasangat. Otherwise, vile abhav, this koti will remain, species will remain independent of the clay in your house or in your front yard had it been of a different nature. But that doesn't happen. So our experience. Upadanat anyatra karyale anupatte. The rule is that karya, the effect, always becomes merged in the upadana karanam, in the material cause. So that is called material cause, where the effect merges. To arrive at material cause of what this material of the pot is, you have to go where the pot merges. Then you ascertain this clay is the upadana karanam. So similarly also, that clay of that kusula merges into the clay in your front yard. That shows that this clay is the upadana karanam of that kusula also. So the form that the upadana karanam takes is different in a kusula and in a pot. But that does not establish the difference in the clay or the upadana karanam. Tasmat swakarya apekshaya prithvi tavat sukshma vyapika cha siddha. From this analysis now, we arrive at this conclusion that prithvi is the upadana karanam because it is sukshma and vyapi. It is subtler than the effect, which is the fourfold beings, and more pervasive. So Prithvi is the cause, material cause of the fourfold beings. And from this analysis that established that Prithvi is subtler and more pervasive than the effect. So this is not the point in the verse. Point is to begin with Prithvi, but about Prithvi we want to understand first. How Prithvi itself also possesses Sukshmata and Vyapita. Prithvi also possesses subtleness and pervasiveness. Because Prithvi also is the Upadana Karanam, material cause of something such as a pot. They will understand what Sukshmata and Vyapita is. Prithvi itself becomes illustration for us to understand what is Sukshmata and Vyapita. From this analysis established that Prithvi possesses Sukshmata, subtlety, Vyapita, pervasiveness, with reference to the effect, which is the fourfold being. So now we understand what is Sukshmata and Vyapita. We look for it now further, for further analysis. We'll see. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti 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 शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति। हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः